understand, because vision leads to impact. Now, if somebody were to take a grenade and pull the pin on the grenade and to throw that out into a field, that grenade would have an impact on the ground. That's not the kind of impact I'm talking about. I'm talking about sustained impact. Sustained impact requires a sense of vision. And that's what we're interested here at South Bay Church. We want to have a sustained impact in our region for a long, long time. And the only way that happens is if we have vision. Not just any vision, it's got to be God's vision. Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 4 is a very exciting passage because it drips vision, God's sized vision. Let me read this to you, Genesis chapter 12. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. And I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you I will curse. And in you all the families of the earth shall be blessed." So Abram went as the Lord had told him. Now let me tell you, that's a vision. That's a vision that is a God-sized vision. And you can't imagine the possibilities that came flooding into Abram. And God invited him to step into what was going to happen in the future. And I believe South Bay Church is in exactly the same place as Abram was. Now you may ask, well, Pastor, what is a vision? It's very important for us to understand what that is. What is a vision? Well, a vision is a clear picture of a path to the future. Simply stated, let me say that again, it's super important that we all understand a vision is a clear picture of a path to the future. And let me explain that further. A person with a vision is somebody who has the ability not so much to know what the finished product is, but they have some sense of direction and they begin to move forward based upon that God-given vision. A vision allows us to see what we're supposed to be, what we're supposed to do, what we're supposed to build. That's what a vision does. But it has to be a God-sized vision. My daughters, when they were married. I have 3, 2 were married, and it was interesting because once they became engaged, the vision for that day began to shape them. They began to think about what it was going to be like, how is it going to be, what's the dress that I'm going to wear. And they both operated under the covering of mom and dad. And they would come back and say, hey, we want this venue, and we're going, honey, that's $30,000. No, mom and dad are not going to pay for that. I even told them, I will make South Bay Church look like the Taj Mahal. And they said, Dad, that's not in my vision. It was still under my covering, but it wasn't. I tried. I said, how about you guys have a wedding on the same day? I mean, I have a vision for that. And same caterer, and they were like, Dad, you just don't get it, do you? But we had a vision. They had a vision, and they marched toward that vision. When God gives you a vision, you prepare for it. You make different decisions to achieve it. You prioritize it so that it will come to pass. You plan and you move toward it. That's what Abram did. And that's what South Bay Church is doing today as well. Here's another question. Pastor, how do I know what I think is a vision is actually from God? How do I know that? How do I know that I'm not just wasting my time and wasting God's time? Let me give you 3 principles to walk with that we can see in the story of Abram that will help us understand that what we're looking at is indeed God. The first is this: God's vision is always bigger than me. Let me say that again. God's vision is always bigger than me. I have a vision for a glass of water. Okay, that may be a vision, but it's probably not a God vision. Because that's easy for me to accomplish. walk right down the steps, through the aisles, out to the water fountain, get a drink of water. However, God has given me a vision to see that 1,000 people in a land where there is no water to be able to drink water freely. Now we're getting close to a God-sized vision. Do you see the difference there? Which leads to number 2 in the principles to determine whether or not it's a vision from God. And it is this: God's vision is impossible to accomplish without Him. Without Him. Ephesians chapter 3 verse 20 says, "Now to Him who is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, above all that we ask or think, according to the power that works in us." That power is the resurrected Jesus Christ. The Holy Spirit is the power that is within us, that allows us to see the vision and then begin to move toward it by faith. That's a key in finding God's vision for your life. See, it's absolutely impossible to achieve a God-sized vision without faith, because the Lord says, without faith, it's impossible to please Him. So number 1, God is going to bring things to us that are bigger than us, because He wants us to get to the precipice of our abilities and say, God, I can't do this without you. He's going, that's right. And that's exactly the position I want you to be in, so that we can go to the next place. Because without faith, it's impossible to please Him. And this third area, this third principle about vision gives me goosebumps. And it is this: God's vision is compelling. Could you imagine being Abram when God said, come on out of that land? Do you imagine all the attachments, good, healthy, righteous attachments that Abram had in the land where he was? And then God says to him, come on out of there. I am going to use you to bless literally every single person on earth. Do you think that might have stirred some stuff inside of Abram? How compelling. God, how are you going to do that? What is that going to look like? When is that? I mean, all these questions start developing inside of Abram. And those same kinds of questions stir in us as God lays vision in front of us. Because number 1, the vision that God has for you, for us, is a big vision. It's a God-sized vision. It's not something that we can do ourselves. And it's something where we have to look to God. We take a step and we go, God, now what? God, now what? Now what are we supposed to do? And by faith, He continues to reveal and open and empower. And all the while, we're compelled. We're compelled to go. We're compelled to see it come to pass. It captivates us. It stirs our soul. We begin to get inklings that this might be why I was born. I might be walking into something that the Creator of the universe made for me to be or to do or to build. And it captivates us. See, that's God-sized. That's His help. That's captivation in what He lays in front of us. And I want you to understand, too, this isn't something new for South Bay. Because it's been the vision of God that has brought South Bay to where it is today. God laid a vision. I can't speak to the time that I was here prior to 9 years ago when I started as the pastor here at South Bay, but I can speak into what I found when I got here. And I can prove to you that it was God's vision that took us from that day to where we are today. And I believe with all of my heart, this is a very, very special day, because in a few minutes I'm going to lay in front of you what I believe is a turning point for South Bay Church, in the same way that we experienced a turning point 9 years ago. Let me give you a little bit of a history. I never thought that 10 years ago, when Karen and my girls and we started attending South Bay Church, I never dreamed that I would be the pastor of South Bay Church. I didn't know. I had no idea. But what happened was this, and you may not know this. 9 years ago, South Bay Church was hemorrhaging profusely. This church was completely bankrupt. We had a staff and an elder body and a leadership team that was wounded. And the Lord said, David, Karen, step on in. We felt exactly like Abram, walking into something that we had no idea what it was going to be. The first 2 weeks that I was here, we lost over half the congregation. Not too bad for 2 weeks of work, I would say. Prior to me being here, we had no pastor. The church was floundering. And God spoke to Karen and I. It was clear to us that we were supposed to be here. We were to begin shepherding the people here. For 6 months, we did everything that we could to stabilize this church, caring for the staff, caring for the elders, caring for the congregation. We did not know what the future held. We had no idea. All we had was a vision of what it could be. What would it be like if it got better? And the Lord wouldn't let it go. We couldn't let it go because it compelled us. That's why I say to you, God's vision is always bigger. It's always bigger. God's vision is impossible to accomplish without Him. You see, Karen and I, we brought our willingness, we brought our obedience to the table, we brought our passion, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't. If that's all that we brought to the table, it would have sunk. See, it's impossible, absolutely impossible to accomplish a God-sized vision without Him. And He laid that in front of us. And that's why I say to you, it's impossible to please Him without faith. He is going to draw you, and He's going to draw us into something too big, and gloriously and miraculously begin to lay the pavement right in front of you. Sometimes right under your foot before it hits the ground, He lays the paver. And that's been the story of South Bay Church. God's vision is compelling. It's compelling. It will not let you go. It draws you in. It captivates you. It pulls you towards God's goal for your life. And you will not be satisfied until you surrender to the vision that God has for your life. And every day that you fight against it, it's like fighting against the very reason why God put you on the earth. It tears at your soul. I'm speaking from experience. It tears from your soul. It tears your mind. It won't let you go until you surrender. And I want you to understand. Sitting in the seats next to you, and you probably would not know who these people are, and they would not probably stand up and share with you who they are. But there's a remnant of people who were here when I started. A remnant of people who loved this church and loved the Lord. And when I laid a vision in front of them of what this house could be, they bought into the vision. And together as one, we started walking forward. And I'm here to tell you that the seats that you're sitting in were purchased. They were provided for. They were prayed over by a group of maybe 175 people 9 years ago who stepped up to the plate and bought into a vision that was too big for us. It was nothing we could accomplish without God intervening, and it compelled all of us to wonder what the future might look like. And for us to be here today talking about the turning point of vision inside of our house is nothing but celebration for those who have gone before you to establish this house. That's why I say, this is sacred ground. This isn't just a church. This isn't just a place where we come in and we sing songs and go home. This has deep, deep significance. High price paid for us to be who we are today and be going in the direction that we are today. God's taking South Bay Church forward. He's taking us forward. And that's the whole point of the next. What's next for South Bay? And this is just the next piece of a grand plan that God has for our campus, this region. What's next for South Bay? Well, I'll tell you this, South Bay Church is moving forward to achieve our God-given destiny. And what is our immediate destiny? I can answer that in one word with an exclamation point after it: children. I want you to say that with me. Children. Who's the fastest growing population in South Bay Church? Say it. Children. That's exactly right. Who is God raising up right now inside of this church that are going to be the change agents for His glory in our future? Say it again. That's exactly right. So who should we prioritize? Who should we begin to pour into like we've never done before? Who's God's answer for our future? Our children. This campaign that we're on, this series that we're in, is all about the children of South Bay Church. We have to honor our children. So here's what I'd like to do. I want to give you a picture of what we're looking at in terms of expansion of our campus so that we can facilitate our children. I have a brochure for you. Some ushers, some First Impressions people are going to hand something out. It looks just like this. And inside of it, you're going to begin to get a glimpse of why we are doing what we're doing and what we are actually doing. I want you to understand, 5 years ago, while these things are being passed out, 5 years ago, I went to the elders of South Bay Church and I said to them, men, I really believe it's time for us to expand. We need to build out the church campus a little bit so that we can meet the needs of all of the people here that are coming to South Bay. And at that time, we had just a little bit less number of people than we have today. And it was interesting. In that elders meeting, we started praying, and there was a resounding no from the elders. I didn't understand it. I was actually very disappointed, this being 5 years ago, and I was like, well, Lord, I really thought it was time. I had no idea what the future was going to hold. I had no idea that we were going to be planting a church down in Apollo Beach and that we were going to send 200 people from South Bay into that church, and I had no idea the impact that was going to have upon us. And if we would have gone ahead with a building program and expansion of our campus then, it would have been a difficult hole for us to dig out of. God knew exactly. He knew exactly what we needed. So the elders spoke, and they said, David, we don't believe that right now is the time for us to build. And I said, okay. And if you remember, maybe you were here then, I came back, I was a little disappointed, and I said to the congregation, I just don't think it's time. The elders have spoken, and I'm under their authority. So we did exactly that. Nothing. It was last year that I approached the elders again. I laid in front of them the issues that we were having, and I'll talk about those issues here in just a second. I laid it in front of the elders, and I said, men, what should we do? And to the man, every one of them, it really pierced my heart. They looked at me and said, David, it's time. It's time. In perfect unity, they all spoke. And you have to understand, we have some Holy Spirit-filled tightwads on our elder body. And I thought for sure that I was going to have to sell, but there was none of that. Every one of these men heard from the Lord. And listen to me, the way I operate may be different than other pastors that you know, but I am submitted to the elders of South Bay Church. I trust these men, and when they speak in unity, it is as though God Himself is speaking to me. And when all of these men look at me with joy in their heart, and we're thinking about, what does this mean? We don't know yet. We just know that God is saying it's time, and all of them say, David, it's time. And I walked out of there so excited. And this is what I knew. If God is going to speak to the elders of our church and tell me it's time to go, then friends, it's already done. It's already accomplished by faith. And now it's time for us to move forward and accomplish the things that God wants us to do. So on page 5, I'd like for you to turn there in page 5 of this little booklet. Here's the issue that we're facing right now. The top paragraph there. Our children's space. Our children's space right now in the, out the left side of the auditorium here, if you're visiting with us, outside that area, outside those doors, the children's area, our children's area is maxed out. 1 year ago, we averaged 117 children. Today, we're averaging 170 children. We are 20 kids away from being 100% capacity. And at that point, it's really not safe for us to be packing more children into the ministry. So we have to do something. That's our future. God He's giving to us young families here at South Bay. And the end result of that is we have to steward what God's bringing to us. In January, just last month, we had more children in the ministry than we did at Easter last year. And you know, if you were here at Easter last year, what this was like. God is continuing to pour out more and more children upon this church, and I thank God for that. So we have to expand our children's space by reconfiguring and utilizing new space. And what I mean by that is we're actually going to take the offices that the staff are now in. We've asked the builders to come in and give us their recommendations. McCullen and Scott, who built this building, they know it inside and out. They specialize in churches. We consulted with them, and they said the safest, most logical thing that you can do to serve your children is to convert the staff offices into children's space. That way the children aren't in two different places on the campus. They're all in one space, and it will be as safe as Fort Knox. We'll have one way in and one way out. That's it. We'll have a ton of emergency exits. And I think as I reveal to you just a few minutes, I'll show you something else. It's going to make so much sense, and it gives me goosebumps because it's almost as though God designed it himself, and it's beautiful. But I want you to understand this campaign is about children. So here's what we've got. We're retrofitting the children's area, the whole side of the church over there, all for children. So on a Sunday morning, no more classes over there. We have to do classes in another location. So the second thing that we're going to do then is we're going to build staff offices on another part of the property. Modest offices that will meet the needs that we have today. And also as we grow, it'll offer us space to be able to add additional staff and not have to double and triple offices for the staff. Here's the third thing. When people, and you can recognize this, when people come into South Bay from the front doors, everybody just leans left. And they go to the coffee pot, and they go to the Danishes. You know what I'm talking about, right? See, look, we've been doing that for years, and I think there's some kind of feeding the 5,000 miracle going on, because I know how many Danishes there are at the beginning of a Sunday. We have 900 people coming through there, and we always have 12 left over. I don't understand. No, just kidding. What we do here at South Bay is we come in and we use that hallway over there. Everybody walks up and down that hallway saying hello, checking in their kids, and that's not a safe situation for our children. What I mean to do, what we need to do, is when people come into South Bay, they lean right. So what we're doing is this. The double doors that you see right over there that go outside the church, we're going to put another set of doors there, and we're actually going to make a lobby that goes from the portico out to the corner of the building, wraps all the way around this side of the building. So when people come into South Bay, there's a huge fellowship area. There's no reason for anyone to go to that side over there to the left when you come in unless you're a child care worker or if you're a parent with children. And that's exactly the kind of priority that we need to give to our children. So that's what we're going to do. Now, I want to read to you out of Matthew chapter 28, 19 and 20. It says, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." This is our vision. This is our core. This is our foundation. And that is that we care, we equip, and we send. We have to move forward with this because we're not caring for our families the way that we should be. Sometimes we have 9, 10, even I've seen it up to 15 families waiting in line to check in their children. We don't have enough space with all of the children that God's bringing to us. That does not represent care, the kind of care that I want people to see. I want people, when they walk into South Bay and they look left and they see our children's ministry, they're saying this church prioritizes their children. This church really creates a safe environment for our kids. And when the kids walk in, they go, "This is the coolest place on earth." And that's exactly where we need to be for our children, investing in our children. So, we find ourselves at another defining moment in the history of our church. Considering that 9 years ago, when I laid the vision of South Bay in front of the remnant who are sitting with you right now, it was a defining moment for us. Are we going to bail, or are we going to trust God with a vision that's too big for us, a vision that requires His help, and a vision that compels us to step into what God has for our future? It's time for us to move forward. It's time for us to grab hold of what God has. Before we close today, I want to give you a few pictures, and they'll be up on the screen behind me. And these pictures are, and let me say this ahead of time, these pictures are just conceptual. We have sat down with the builders, we've done our due diligence, and I want to paint a picture of what it might be. What you see is not what it's going to be, because it hasn't gone to architects, it hasn't gone down that road that far yet, because we're still in the planning stages. But the best that I can offer to the builders and the team here at South Bay that are talking with the builders, this is what we've presented to the builders. The builders have come back and said, we can do this. And then it has to go to the architects to see if it's possible. Then it has to go to the city to see if they'll bless it and allow us to do the things that we do. So what are we looking at? We're looking at least September before we would break ground. We're looking at about 5 to 6 months of construction, which would take us into February, March of 2020 before we would occupy. But I want you to see some of the things that might be. So the first picture that you'll see is a picture of the children's area. So people who would walk into the church and look left. Now, the pictures you're going to see are very simple. I want to suggest to you that it's going to be wow. Wow. This is very basic. Now, the lobby of the church, the children's area, is actually going to come out and take up half of the lobby that we have. The children's entrance will be right out there. That way there's one way in and one way out. And I think that's going to provide a very safe environment. So that slide is an idea of what you might come in and look at to the left. Now the next one is to the right, and that's going to be the lobby area where we're going to go as the congregation. There's going to be a cafe there. There's going to be couches and chairs that you'll be able to sit and meet people. Right now, one of the struggles that we have, and it deeply impacts our children's area, is the fact that we all congest that area out there. It's so packed that we can hardly have a conversation before and after services. That has to be expanded so that we can develop relationships. Again, this goes back to care. And we have to be able to do that away from the children's area. That hallway down here that all of us walk on, frankly, those doors right over there, we're going to close those off. There won't even be a way out of this auditorium unless it's an emergency exit to get out there. That side of the building will be Fort Knox. One way in and one way out. Unless it's an emergency, we'll have emergency doors everywhere. There will be no reason for anyone to be over there unless they're picking up, dropping off, or caring for our children. So the cafe area, our gathering is going to be over on the other side over there. Now let me give you a picture of what the front of the church might look like. This is exciting to me. One of the things that I've been hoping for is that we would be able to care for our disabled and our elderly here at South Bay. So what we're trying to do is look at bringing concrete right up to the windows. And parking, covered parking there so that when it's raining outside, folks can park right up close. And we're talking with the builders as well about putting an awning out so that we can drop individuals off under a covering if it's raining outside, because that happens just a little bit of the time in Florida, right? So that's very exciting to me. Now understand, these are just renderings. I can't tell you that this is going to be exactly what it looks like because the architects haven't started working on it. We don't know what's going to happen to the price of steel and tariffs and all that kind of stuff. So the best that we have today is what I'm providing to you. Now, here's the last area that I want to take a little bit more time with. This is an overview of the property that we have right now, or the buildings. Do you see that? Perfect. All right. I want to start in the bottom left-hand side. In the bottom left-hand side, the area that's pink, if you're colorblind, I apologize ahead of time. I don't even know what color that would be for you right now. But in the bottom left-hand corner, you see the pink area. That represents all of the staff offices. That's the area that's going to be retrofitted to take care of our children. So in that's going to allow us to minister to 200 to 220 children per service. And that allows us a lot of room to expand to take care of our children, because right now we average about 177 per Sunday. So there's a lot of room for us to grow into in caring for our children, and it's also very safe. Now, if you go to the top right-hand corner, you see the blue box up there. That represents what we're looking at for the staff. That's going to have a new conference room that's going to have ample space. It'll have its own lobby so that we can entertain individuals, and they'll have a place to sit on Monday through Friday when the offices are open. There'll be bathrooms up there. And I want you to see as well, do you see the box with the X through it and it says sanctuary? That is not a part of what we're doing right now. Our builders have come to us and said, we think it's wise for you guys to plan out what the Lord might be doing years and years and years down the road. So I put an X there because we're not building a sanctuary. I've talked to a few of you about this, and some of you have said back, why aren't we building a new sanctuary? I can answer that easily. We don't need one. We're doing great in this sanctuary. This is a beautiful environment for us, and the Lord has blessed us with a great sanctuary. I'm interested in meeting needs. That's it. We need to meet needs, all right? Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. Right now, our children need for us to step up to the plate and provide a larger area for them to experience Christ. They need that. Young families need to walk into our church, look to the left and go, that is a secure place, it's a fun place, it's an excellent place. That's what we need to do. It was interesting. I was talking with the builders, and they said to me, David, it's really refreshing for us to work with South Bay Church. I said, well, why is that? He said, because this is one of the rare opportunities for us to actually build something that's needed and not building it because they're just hoping more people will come. He said, that's a very rare thing when we're building churches. I said, praise God, because that's where we are. We need this. This isn't fluff and it's not nice. The orange area represents what the lobby might look like, what it might be. So there would be ample space for us. Inside this area, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be putting 2 classrooms. One of the struggles that we have right now, because the children's area is growing so much, and I've asked the middle school to move off of the Sunday morning because our kids need that space, and I understand that makes hardship for some of the parents here who bring middle schoolers during the second service, but we really don't have any other option. So we've got to move forward with this as quickly as possible. One of the things we're going to do is we'll be making classrooms. There'll be 2 classrooms plus a large conference room, which will triple really the amount of space that we have at this point in time to do adult classes. The Discover class, Financial Peace class, the 10 Ways to Find Christ class. We have a lot of things that we want to do, but we're so space compressed that we can't do it. This will allow us to accomplish that. I know that you have 1,000 questions. I have 1,000 answers. We have been thinking about this and planning this since 2018. It's a joy to be able to present this to you. And I want you to understand, this campaign is not about money, and it's not about buildings. It's about faith. It's about vision. It's about us walking by faith and saying, okay, God, we're just like Abram. You're calling us out from where we were into something new. So we know this is bigger than us, and we know that we can't do this without you, and we are compelled to focus upon the children because they need it. So that's the direction that we're going to walk. In the weeks to come, I want to help you understand more about what it means. And inside the small group time, I've tailored devotionals and discussions that will help bring all of this to the surface. That's why this is so important that you be in a small group right now. I'm not asking for your money right now. That's not what this is about. As a matter of fact, when we start talking about the financial side of this, that's not going to be till the end of March. Right now, what I'm asking you to do is pray and answer the question, am I willing to engage the vision of South Bay Church? Am I willing to step up and be a vision carrier for our children? That's what the small groups are going to lead us to do. But let me give you some nuts and bolts. This is a $3 million, yes, I did have an M on that, $3 million campaign spread over 3 years. We must take the existing mortgage that we have, which is $1.5 million, and add to that the expansion, which is $1.5 million. That comes to $3 million. We're already ahead of the game, and here's why. The bankers that we're talking to are going to lower the interest rate, which means that what we're paying in the end is actually going to be less if we go forward. And here's the thing. I believe that God can raise $3 million over 3 years from this house. I believe that with all of my heart. We are going to be further ahead. We have the opportunity of wiping all the debt out of South Bay or coming close to that. My prayer, my faith says to me, God, help us get out of debt. And that's what we're going to do. We're going to move forward. So the banks are working with us. We're putting those things, and as soon as I know, you will know. But I'm so excited. I've gotten goosebumps all as I've been talking to you this morning, because I know in my heart that this is the direction that the Lord wants us to go. And I see it in your faces too. There's more information to come. I'll be sharing with you all kinds of details. Matter of fact, a part of the message next week is going to be answering specific questions as we move forward. Get into a care group. Now, let me pray for you.